Good morning, everyone. This morning we're going to discuss some home and school connections and how we can take a part in our ELL students getting those home and school connections. For starters, when it comes to cultural influences, we want our students to feel welcomed. We want to foster that environment in the classroom where they feel comfortable being themselves and still displaying their culture in the midst of another, or a culture that is so diverse as some classrooms are. For cultural competence as teachers, we want to incorporate those differences and the cultures into our lessons, make it a part of our daily classroom environment to recognize those differences between the students and their cultures and celebrate those things, not push them aside or discard or disregard. For their social emotional needs, we can work on building self-esteem, pride, confidence in themselves and where they come from. Teach them to interact with the other kids. Certain cultures, their interactions and gestures such as that are different than the ones that we may use in our classroom setting or our environment or even just in our country in general. We also need to make sure that we are fostering a culture of accepting students as they are in our classrooms, whether they look, talk, dress differently, any of the above. We need to make sure that our students understand the kind of environment that needs to be in our classrooms, that needs to be soaking in. For some intentional strategies for family and community engagement. There are some things we can do, like communicating respectfully according to the family and student culture. Starting any meetings that you have with them on a positive note, just letting them know that you're happy to see them, be there, and do anything that you can to help them. If necessary, you may need to include a translator in those meetings. Make sure that your terms and everything that you're explaining to them has been simplified and make the discussion easy for them to understand so they can actively participate better. You can provide a weekly newsletter in the native language if necessary. If their English may not be good enough, then maybe turn around and send a newsletter home in Spanish, for example, and explain that you don't want to discourage the child or family's culture, but build around it in your classroom environment. You want to make those parents feel actively involved and included by letting them share their opinions, their thoughts, and their feelings. So those are a few things that we can do, a few intentional strategies. For an inclusive school and classroom environment, you need to incorporate, like we've discussed, their native language in ways that is feasible throughout the day, like providing index cards or vocabulary words that are labeled in their native language, as well as giving that student vocabulary and sight word cards in their native language. For example, maybe with an image and the word in English and in their native language, so they can learn to make that connection and translate it. You can also provide a lot of encouragement in the classroom to celebrate their uniqueness and their differences from their culture. That will make them feel more accepted and recognized. And you can provide opportunities through their culture to allow the students to connect to what they're learning. If there's a holiday coming up maybe that they celebrate in their culture that you could talk about, or if you could have a day when that culture is recognized and the students can eat the food, listen to the music, something like a culture day or culture week. For the role that family and community practices would play in this, family and community practices shape how a child sees the world around them. That communication at home is often reflected in a way a child communicates with you and other students in the classroom. So the more active and participating a family is in that child's education, the better the child does. So we can use all of these strategies and be intentional about incorporating culture into the classroom to make those home and school connections for our children.